Are you feeling chaos and overwhelm when it comes to managing your home and family? Well, this podcast, we are going to be talking about that, about managing your home and family well. So join me for this episode of the Raising Arrows podcast. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Raising Arrows podcast. I'm Amy Roberts from raisingarrows.net, and this is episode number 135, Managing Your Home. Now, that's a pretty broad title there, and a lot of things could fall into the category of managing your home. But we are going to be talking about actually fitting everything in to your day as a home manager, someone who needs to take care of a home and family day in and day out. How do you do that? What systems do you have in place? And a lot of the pitfalls that can happen is really what we're going to focus on. And that comes from lots of different things that might be happening, circumstances that might be happening in your home. And what can you do to fix those or to at least manage them as well as part of your home management? Now, before I dive into this, I do want to mention that my Creating a Homeschool Schedule You Love e-course is at a reduced price right now. I want everyone to be able to afford to have a homeschool schedule that they love. So I want you to check that out in the show notes because this class will walk you step by step through how to create a streamlined, automatic homeschool schedule that you can do day in and day out without a lot of stress and hassle and worry. And you have lifetime access to the class so that when your circumstances change, you can go back and take the class again and rework your homeschool schedule so you continue to love your homeschool schedule. So check that out in the show notes. Again, it's at a reduced price so that everyone can afford it and everyone can have a homeschool schedule that they love. On that note, when it comes to managing your home or your homeschool or your family, one of the big issues is that you have to fit it all together. You have to fit all the pieces together and it all has to fit into a 24-hour day. And some of that day you actually have to sleep. Now, I tell people that when my kids were younger, when they were all little, I was in control of everything, every movement they made, other than, like waking up at night and needing to be fed and stuff like that. But I controlled the movement of the household, the ebb and flow of the household. There weren't any extra pieces other than maybe like my husband's schedule that would cause any sort of chaos and overwhelm. It was really the people within my home and just all of the things that I had to do within a day that was where the chaos and overwhelm came from. Not that those people were also having their own schedules or schedules that I didn't control, which is where I'm at now. I'm at a place where I have a couple of kids still in the household who have their own schedules. They have work, they have school, they have extracurriculars, and they need me to also manage those at times because we don't have enough vehicles for them to go everywhere they want to go. One of them doesn't have a driver's license yet. We're working on it. So he can't just take off and go wherever he wants to go when he wants to go. Plus, I still have events and things that I want to plan as a family that they maybe won't be there. And if I don't have their schedule in mind when I plan those things, we're not going to have everybody with us. And so it has really become a rather chaotic situation for me to fit all those pieces together. Whereas previously, when they were all little, fitting it all together looked more like, trying to figure out how to get the babies fed and get the babies changed and get them down for their nap and get the homeschooling in, and then any play group I might go to or anything that my husband might need me to do. I was fitting pieces within the framework of the household and not having to add outside pieces into the household. So as your family grows and gets older, this fitting it all in is going to change. It's going to morph a little bit and you're going to have to continually be adjusting. And for such a long time, I only had to do little minor tweaks, and now I'm really having to make major adjustments, and that is something that has kind of set me back a little bit. I think I got too comfortable, and now I'm trying to figure it all out again. So I would encourage you, don't get too comfortable. Always be watching as the home manager, always be watching for places that you need to tweak, places you need to grow, things that you need to change, systems that you need to move around a little bit. It will be a much better adjustment if you are not trying to adjust everything because everything exploded. I think very often we try to hang on white-knuckled to the way things were, and we don't move forward with the way things are. We keep thinking that the old ways, we can just hang on to them and they'll eventually work again. We want to go back to the way things were. And so we try to implement the old systems, the old cleaning routines, the old homeschooling routines, and they don't typically work. You really often have to start from scratch. As the kids get older, you very rarely can go back to the way things were. So when it comes to fitting everything into your day, no matter where those things are coming from, whether they're from older kids needing to be driven to events and work, or from younger kids needing a piece of your time, or from your husband, or from a business, or whatever it is that you are doing that needs to be fit into your day, when you consider where those pieces go, you need to look at the natural flow of your family and do what makes sense for you and your family. You're not going to be able to take somebody else's schedule and make it work for you. You're going to need to take a look at the ebb and flow of your own family routine and try to figure out where those pieces best fit. An example of this is that recently I realized I needed to spend some more energy on the blog. And the only way I was going to ever get around to that was to have some set blogging hours. And so I took a look at the schedule because it just felt like I never had any time to really do that. Back in the day, I'd put everybody to bed and then I would blog at night. Well, my life wasn't like that anymore. My husband no longer works from home. My kids are older and a lot of them still stay up quite late and they need me. That's the time that we talk. That's the time that I spend with my husband. So blogging late at night did not make sense anymore. I needed to figure out a new place to fit that in. And so as I was looking at the schedule, I was trying to figure out where in the world could I put this Raising Arrows piece. And I finally found a couple of afternoons a week that are pretty low key for us. They're low key for my daughter and my son who can pick up the slack with cooking dinner that night so that I can work through the afternoon. They make dinner and then I'm done after that. And that allows me to not be torn between two different events. And that's typically what causes me the most stress, is that I've got two different things that need to be done and I can't figure out which one has priority. So sometimes I'll be needing to homeschool, but it looks like the house really needs some help. And then I end up torn between the homeschooling and the house. And I don't tend to do either one very well if I don't put them in their own individual slots. So one of those slots for Raising Arrows is actually on a Friday. We clean the house in the morning and everybody's pretty low key. They do their game time, they're watching TV, they're hanging out for the rest of Friday. And I can come upstairs, I can come to my office and I can work while they're doing those things. And I'm not really taking away from them because they're already kind of doing their own thing on Friday afternoon. So that was a great place for me to fit in that Raising Arrows piece of the puzzle. Now, another thing that you need to pay attention to when it comes to fitting these pieces in is, have you put too many pieces in the puzzle? Like, are there too many of these moving parts and pieces and they're not actually going to fit together? And if that's the case, you need to figure out what to remove. Sometimes we just have to take things out of the equation so that we can continue to be productive and manage our homes well. So look for things that just don't glorify God with your time or your money or your family. What are those things that are just kind of extras that you do because you don't know what else to do, or you've always done them and perhaps they aren't as glorifying to the Lord as they once were, or perhaps they never were and they were just things that you did and you kind of mindlessly have done them, but they're adding to your plate and you need to get those off your plate. Look for things that you don't really have to do, or maybe they're expectations that you've put on yourself that aren't really necessary. We do that so often as women. We think we have to do the entire laundry list of stuff. And we don't realize that God didn't put that on us. God didn't make that expectation of us. That was us, or that was us looking at others and thinking that that was something we needed to do. And it's not. It's not always the case. We do not always need to do all the things in order to be considered a productive manager of our home. We need to do the things that the Lord has called us to do. And that's going to look different for every single one of us, because suppose your husband runs a home business. Your day is going to be spent glorifying God in a different way than my day would be spent with a husband who's in the military. There is no way that we can fashion our days after each other. We have to fashion our days after the family that God put us in. And so you need to be looking at what are the things that you could remove that don't really serve that purpose, that don't really serve your family, that don't serve your God. What are things that just need to come out of that schedule because they don't make sense to be in there? Maybe they're great for somebody else's schedule, but they don't really belong in yours. Because let's face it, chaos and overwhelm happen when there are too many things on your plate without the time to deal with each one of them. And if that's the case in your life, you're feeling chaotic, you're feeling overwhelmed, there's a few things that you need to look at besides, how to fit it in and what to remove. You need to maybe get a better system. Think about the things that are bugging you, like laundry or meals. Do you need a better system? Is it a system that is just not working, or it's not working well? What can you do to fix that? And fix one thing at a time. Don't try to fix it all at one time, because it'll never stick. You really have to do things over and over again to make them routine, to where you don't have to think about them anymore. And then they kind of go on autopilot and you can work on the next thing. You may also need less stuff in your home. Maybe it's the eye clutter that's bugging you. Do you need to get rid of some things, or do some things need to have a new home so that you're not staring at them all the time? What can you get rid of that is stuff related, that's maybe in the way, or is maybe kind of just stressing you out because you constantly see it and you don't know what to do about it? Now is the time to do something about those things that are bugging you. And then, as I mentioned before, maybe you just need to lower your expectations a little bit. And that's not a very popular thing to say. And I know a lot of us as Christians kind of think that's almost heresy, like we shouldn't lower our expectations. But you need to lower the expectations that are man-made, not the God-made expectations. But listen to me, His burden is easy. It's us who burden ourselves with very major expectations that we just absolutely cannot fulfill. God is not burdening us with those kinds of things. He's not burdening us with a bunch of rules and regulations and things that we have to do in order to measure up. You have to recognize what is man-made expectations and what are God-made expectations, and make sure that you are not trying to fill your day with those man-made expectations. So let's recap a bit. When it comes to managing your home, you need to manage your home. This is your home. You are in charge of this home, and it is going to look different from anybody else's. I know I say that over and over again, and it's because I so firmly believe this is something that women get really caught up in, especially in this day and age where we have a lot of things we can look at, a lot of places we can go online to tell us what it should look like, when really we need to be looking to the Lord for what it should look like. When it comes to managing your home, you need to consider your home, your family, not what Instagram tells you is a nice looking home or what a homemaker should be or any of that. It can all be good, but is it God's good? Is it what God has for you? I like to bake my own bread, but that's not a hill to die on. That's not something that God put on me. There is nothing in the Bible about baking my own bread being the epitome of Christianity or of Christian homemaking. And when we put those kinds of expectations on ourselves, anything from cloth diapering to baking our own bread to eating clean to eating organic to having quiet time first thing in the morning to wearing certain clothes or wearing our hair a certain way, those are man-made traditions and certainly sometimes have a place, but they are not expectations of the Lord. So we really need to know our Bible. And if you do nothing else when it comes to managing your home, read your Bible. Just read your Bible and get focused on the Lord. Be prayerful and abide in Him, and quit abiding in the world's knowledge of what a Christian homemaker looks like or how a Christian woman should manage her home. Heaven forbid I ever tell you on this podcast that there is only one way to manage your home or clean your home or homeschool your children outside of the Lord's direct direction to you in those things. Because what happens when we start doing that is we put burdens on each other as Christian women. According to Titus 2, the ultimate goal of our homemaking as Christian women, our parenting as Christian women, is that the Word of God may not be reviled. So get yourself in the Word so that you know what that means. And I can guarantee you it has nothing to do with there never being a dirty dish in the sink or there never being a pile of laundry, because especially in a large family home or where you have a lot of little kids or you're very busy with something that the Lord has tasked you with, very rarely is there going to be a completely empty sink or a completely empty laundry basket, because we are continually working on those things. They're a work in progress. They're not a one and done. You don't get the laundry done and it's done forever. That's not how our homemaking works. It is a process. It is constantly moving forward, doing the next thing as the Lord leads. And honestly, there are times when I feel a little bothered by the fact that I don't have a completely clean kitchen all the time and I don't have an empty laundry basket all the time. I do the little things and they continually need to be done again. And that can sometimes feel a little overwhelming to us as homemakers, but we need to flip the switch on how we think about those tasks. You have to remember, as I said before, they're not one and done. That's not the way this homemaking gig works. It is progress. It is process. It is over and over again an act of worship to the Lord through your family. You are working at home. You are the boss. You are managing this household, and that is an ongoing event. So don't lose sight of that. And ultimately, home is not about appearances. It's about relationships. How are the relationships in your household? They are far more important than the appearance of your home. Far more important. So stay focused, my friends, and live as the blessing you are. We'll see you next time here on the Raising Arrows podcast.